Welcome to this presentation on World Ocean Day. Today, we'll be talking about the adverse effects of land-based sources of pollution on ocean health. We are EcoTrust Society, located within the Faculty of Earth and Environmental Science. Join us as we go through today's proceedings. What does ocean mean to us? The ocean is responsible for a great deal of processes that happens in the world today. For example, it contributes to the world's oxygen. It helps in climate regulation. It acts as a mode of transportation. It has recreational activities that we as humans indulge in. It provides food for both humans and marine organisms. It is a source of income and it contains rich biodiversity. But did we talk about what is an ocean? An ocean is a large body of water that provides benefits for marine organisms and humans. Pollution of the ocean is very detrimental. Pollution is often described as the introduction of foreign and unwanted materials into a particular environment. This causes changes that has affected flora, fauna, or any other element within the environment. Land pollution specifically is one way in which our oceans are affected, and this happens in three ways. So, what would be our sources of land pollution and the effects on the ocean? So our first way is marine litter. Now marine litter includes debris such as organic litter, plastics, glass, paper, cloth, rubber, wood, and derelict items. So in the pictures below, we have some examples or we're showing how is it that these marine litter can affect our organisms and affect the aesthetics of our environment. So in the first picture, we can see that there's a little dolphin or a sea otter tangled up in all the litter that would have been dumped in the ocean. The second picture, we can see that there's a fin, which might be a shark. His fin has been tangled up in some random rope within the ocean. In our third picture, we can see the litter on our seawalls or on our beaches. This affects our aesthetic value, and any little organism that lives on these beaches would also be affected because they have foreign materials within their environment. Marine litter also deteriorates our ecosystems and they affect our public health. Our second way in which land pollution affects our oceans would be within the aspect of nutrients. So that includes fertilizers from agricultural activities, biological fixation, livestock waste, and nitrogen and phosphorus entering the environment. And actually, the first three ways in which it affects our environment produces the nitrogen and the phosphorus, which ultimately affects our oceans and other water bodies. So in the first picture, we have an aerial view of nutrients entering an ocean or a very large water body and how it looks. We can see that it has this green fringe around the land area where it may have run off from. And then further, we have the blue ocean. Our second picture, we have fishes that are dead from perhaps the intrusion of this nitrogen and phosphorus within the environment. And our third picture, which is actually the cause for the death and the cause for the green color of the water bodies, would be eutrophication. Eutrophication causes algae bloom, and this algae bloom causes this green color within our waters. And because of that, there's an increase in anoxic environment, or the reduction of oxygen within the environment, which causes our organisms that live within that environment to die. In addition to this, the excess nutrients in the ocean also has an impact on economic growth, the health of a population such as us, and the functioning of our ecosystems. Our third way is wastewater. Humans collect a lot of wastewater because water is essential for our life. So ways in which wastewater affects our oceans would be fecal sludge and grey water, commercial effluents, urban and agricultural effluents. This means that when we use the washrooms, when industries use water to process certain foods for us, and when we have agricultural produce going on within a country, um, contaminated water is produced. And where do they empty this contaminated water? This water goes into our waterways, such as the oceans. So for example, in our first picture, we can see some kind of fecal sludge or grey water is being emptied into a water body, right? The next picture, we see a man with a bucket and some random sack, and the water is discolored. This most probably could be some effluent that has been emptied into the ocean. And thirdly, we can see that the turbidity of the water is very much dark, or it has a lot of sediments within it, and this could be as a result of contaminated effluents entering the water. In addition to this, wastewater into our oceans affect the color of the oceans, introduces excessive nutrients, so we can have eutrophication occurring, which makes the ocean uncomfortable for marine organisms to thrive, and affects the human activity. So we want to look at now how the ecosystems that are exactly affected by this phenomenon. So firstly, we have the coastal ecosystems, right? And within the coastal ecosystems, it's comprised of the sea turtles, the sea birds, the seals, and many other coastal organisms which ingest plastic. And as a result, they feel famished, and they consequently die from starvation. So in our first picture, we have a harbor seal pup, which is found dead on the Scottish island of Skye, with its intestines fouled by plastic pieces. So we see how our consumption of plastic affects the animals within the ocean, because a lot of our plastic and a lot of our solid waste is dumped into the ocean. The second picture, we can see that a gray whale who died near Seattle in 2010 with more than 20 plastic bags, a golf ball, and other rubbish in his stomach. Wow. Our third picture, we have the dead albatross chick found in the Midway Atoll in the Pacific Oceans with plastic debris in his stomach. Wow. So you can see these are things that we use, household items that we use, that is dumped into the ocean, and it affects our organisms. Our our second ecosystem that is affected is our marine ecosystem, where fish and other marine animals can become entangled in, or they ingest the plastic and other solid waste debris, causing suffocation, starvation, and drowning. So in our first picture, we see a plastic ban restricts the growth of the blue striped godfish in the Caribbean Sea. Wow. So we see that this plastic bag is comfortably sitting on the fish. The fish is unable to grow, and eventually this this rubber band would suffocate him, right? Or even cut him in half. We don't know the effects. Our second picture, we have a cotton swab lodged in the inside of a comb jellyfish. And it's amazing that we can actually see through this jellyfish. And we see that a swab is sitting comfortably within the jellyfish body. Eventually, this fish might die because the swab might obstruct some function within him, or it might get into something within the jellyfish that causes it to not function as it should. Marine ecosystems, the plastic waste can encourage growth of pathogens in the oceans, which poses an 89% chance of coral contracting diseases. Wow. So it's not just about these marine ecosystems experiencing these random objects within their body affecting the way they live or the way they move, but it's also introducing bacteria into the environment. So here we have a timeline or something showing the progression of how bacteria would have grown on the corals. And the first one we have in 2019, we have a little blotch of bacteria. 12 days after this this blotch grows, 21 days after it's taking up more than half of the coral brain, and more than a month after, the 17th of March in the same year, it takes over the entire coral. How do we expect corals to grow and to thrive when there's bacteria growing on it? Bacteria that does not belong to the ocean or does not even help the ocean in any way. Right? So we have to be careful with what we put into our oceans. So we have to be careful. How can we help? How is it that we can help protect our oceans? Well, the first way and in which the EcoTrust Society are actively involved within this would be we volunteer for cleanups at beaches in our community or even out of our community. Right? We have coastal cleanups, and this would help the organisms that reside on the coast of our Atlantic Ocean, right? They'll have some opportunity to breathe and move around without obstacles within them, right? So removing that layer of garbage on the ocean helps them. Our second way is that, well, not our second way, but this is another coastal cleanup that we did, international coastal cleanup, where we would have collected all the waste that were on the ocean and we recorded it. So this helps us to give us an idea of what is it that we're putting on our beaches, into our oceans, and how much of it. We can also make persons aware of their practices, and we can tell them, please do not litter. Littering is just the improper disposal of our garbage. So we need to practice the proper waste disposal, and encourage others to do the same. So here we have our former EcoTrust Society President, Christy Duff. She was holding an anti-littering talk with the students of Graham's Hall Primary. So it is important that we educate our younger generation on how is it that we can protect our environment. Our last way, and I'm sure not our only ways in which we can help protect our ocean, but just one of the ways in which EcoTrust has been actively helping with the situation would be we advocate for reduce, reuse, recycle practices. So in other words, we try to cut down on what we throw away by reusing and recycling, and this helps to reduce how much is put into our oceans. So for example, if we have our plastic bags, and we try to reuse our plastic bags, and as soon as we get it from the store, we throw it in the bin. But rather, we probably fill it with garbage to to expand its lifetime. Or maybe we find some creative way to incorporate into our daily lives. For our plastic bottles, instead of throwing them away, we can probably refill it with water so that we don't have to buy water when we go out. Or we can make some nice little DIY craft, decorate our homes with those plastic bottles, and that helps to reduce how much waste is put into our environment. Can you imagine if everybody did that, or if half the world's population did that, or if half of our country, Guyana, did that? We would reduce a lot of waste that goes into our environment. So that brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you would have learned a lot on World Ocean Day. I really do hope that the land starts to wave back to the ocean so that it can be less salty. Have a great day, guys.